How's it going, everyone? Ajax the Mystery here, and today we have another Persona 5 boss impression video, that being Okumura, the guy who runs the Okumura fast food Big Bang burger joint in Shibuya. Well, maybe not Shibuya, but, you know, basically the town that you're in, the entire, you know, district and whatnot. I'll admit, the design of this boss, let's get that out of the way. The design for this particular boss is on the same level as Kamoshida. I love how this guy looks. He looks like a Neo Buzz Lightyear reject wannabe. And as soon as I saw his design, I'm like, oh my god, finally. Finally, this guy is at least on some level comparable to Kamoshida. Now, some people might say, hey, the design of this boss is really, you shouldn't be counting it on the same level as Kamoshida because this is what his shadow looks like and he doesn't even transform. And just to give you guys an example, previous shadows that you've fought before in their palaces, they've all had their basic human form, which was really well designed compared to how they look like in real life, but then they could transform into their actual, you know, big boss transformation. At least some of them did that. Not all of them, but some of them did do that. But if we're just gonna judge based on how the shadow looks like initially, because Shadow Okumura doesn't really transform. Like, what you see is what you get. This is what he looks like right now. But that right there, seeing him sit on his throne and with the Buzz Lightyear helmet and the way the astronaut suit just looks in general, I love the design. It took about 5 palaces to get there to finally have something on the same level as Kamoshida, but we're finally there. I love this guy's design. I'm hoping the next palace is just as well designed as this guy and maybe add a little bit more flair as well. Now, in case you guys can't tell from the video, this boss fight is indeed a little bit different from the previous one because I believe this is the first boss fight, at least, you know, so far in the game, that implements a minion type of thing. So before the other boss fights in the other palaces, it was just the boss. There was probably different sections of the boss that you could attack, but there was never a moment where the boss would summon minions that you have to attack for him. But in the Okumura boss fight, this is the first fight in which Okumura summoned minions to fight for him. And in a way, I believe that also accompanies the boss's design because, again, Okumura's whole thing is that he runs one of the biggest fast food chains in Japan. And because of that, since he's at the top of the chain and he's the CEO, he views all of his employees as robots that he can just toss to the side when they get exhausted, make them work overtime with no pay. He's basically the worst boss that you could possibly imagine for any type of position in the job market. So I believe him implementing these robotic minions is a good way to accompany the boss's overall design because, once again, you have to look at the entire picture. The guy is a CEO, so of course he has his little throne chair that he sits in. Okay, but it goes farther than that. Because his restaurant is called Big Bang Burger, it represents, you know, space and whatnot, you know, like the Big Bang Theory. So of course the suit that he's wearing is that of an astronaut suit. Okay, I like where this is going. And you see him not even fighting himself. The man, once you get to his point where you can start attacking him, he's insanely weak. There's really no point in him fighting at all. That's why he uses minions, robotic minions that do his bidding and will basically do anything in their power to make sure that their CEO is on top of the food chain the entire time. There's even a technique that he uses at some point in the fight that basically is called sacrificial order or something along those lines, where he basically just throws up a pink slip as if he's firing his employee and he wants him to basically self-destruct in front of you, doing insane amounts of damage. Looking at that as a whole, the design is what I've been begging for in the bosses since I fought Kamoshida in the early beginnings of the game. The one thing I could probably complain about with the design of the boss is the robot employees. The only reason being because these were enemies that you fought already when you were going throughout the palace. If these were maybe newly designed enemies that you've never seen before, this would have been on the same level of Kamoshida, hands down, without a doubt. But once again, these enemies that he keeps summoning and, you know, giving executive orders to, you've already fought them in the palace on the way to the boss's throne room. So if you know their weaknesses back then, you definitely know them right now. But aside from that, I gotta say the design of the boss by itself is on the same level of Kamoshida. Don't really want to say that it's better because, again, I felt like that was a lazy rehash of using the same minion enemies in this boss fight. But either way, I have to give props where it's due. Finally, 5 palaces in, we have a great boss design. But unfortunately, where the design gets flying colors and it excels in, the difficulty of the boss fight isn't really that hard. The difficulty ties into what I was mentioning earlier about the fault with the boss's design and that he uses the same minions you already fought. Because he uses those same minions, you already know their weaknesses and you already know how to eliminate them extremely quickly and, you know, exploit them and use different attacks and whatnot and different elements. That by itself makes the majority of the boss fight a cakewalk. You could breeze through it without taking almost any damage. But then once you get past a certain point, as you can see right here, Okumura summons the big guy, the giant chief executive, I believe, or his right-hand man, whoever. He's basically someone that's really ranked up high. So right here, this is where you could basically say the real boss fight starts, because this guy absorbs a crap ton of damage. He does a crap ton of damage as well, and he has no weaknesses. So this is where the boss fight really starts. You have to know when to play your defenses. You have to know when to attack. You have to know when to do status debuffs, because as this boss is doing insane amount of damage, Okumura in the background is doing his typical BS stuff where he is doing stat debuffs, you know, decreasing your defense, decreasing your evasion or accuracy. It's really annoying when you got this big hulking chieftain just wailing down sometimes one-hit KOs. It's really hard to do damage against this guy. So you could say this is around the point where the difficulty kind of spiked at this point, but it really wasn't that hard to deal with. You just need to know when to block, when to do attacks, when to do status debuffs, and you're good to go. As long as you have revive abilities and revive items, you're safe. There's nothing to worry about. Heal your main character, you're good to go. And also, one last difficulty thing that they add in here is a timer. So you have 30 minutes to defeat the boss, and that includes, you know, on your turn, waiting for a turn, or just you going through your menus. This is a boss fight that you need to finish in 30 minutes real time. So maybe the developers added in that timer to basically compensate where the difficulty was lacking with those first couple of robots, because you already know their weaknesses. So now it's like, hey, you know their weaknesses, but now you're on a timer. So again, I did like that change of pace. It really did get me going through my menus trying to find out, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to defend? What abilities do I have? Because this big robot is doing a lot of damage, and Okumura is doing so many stat debuffs. It was getting me so mad. But all in all, really wasn't that difficult of a boss fight. But the last thing I probably want to talk about is the person that joins the team. Her name is Haru, and to be honest, she's probably the least interesting person that joins the Phantom Thieves, at least in my personal opinion, because she pretty much joins in a very unconventional way. There was basically a formula as to how the Phantom Thieves individually joined the team, and because of that, you know, template that they had for each character, you could develop them and basically get to know them a little bit more before they joined the team itself. But because they went a different route with how Haru joins the team, again, it's not a bad idea, but I believe because of the route they took, I didn't really have that much interest in Haru. She's basically a ditzy little girl that is the daughter of Okumura, and she's the one that also wants to change her father's heart because she sees all the terrible things that he's doing, and he wants to marry her off to some douchebag fiance of another company to merge their companies together or become business partners or something like that. Basically, I didn't really care for her story. It wasn't that interesting. All the other stories before this were 10 times more appealing, and it got my attention way more than, you know, this character did. So to wrap up the video, you guys know my thoughts right now. I love the design of the boss, looking at everything, not just each individual aspect, not just the chieftain, you know, robot that comes in, not just Okumura, not just the robots that come in the beginning of the fight. It's the whole picture. I love the design of the whole picture of this boss fight. It's on the same level of Kamoshida in my personal opinion, but let me know what you all think in the comments below. In terms of difficulty, it was about half and half. I want to say the first half of the boss fight really wasn't that difficult, and the second half, even though the difficulty did heighten after you defeated all those little robots, it really wasn't anything you couldn't manage or handle on your own. So to put it into perspective, the Wakaba boss fight was way more harder than this boss fight was as a whole. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of the boss fight? How did you like the design? What was the difficulty? Did you like Haru's story? Did you like Okumura's downfall? Because once again, I do not want to spoil this, but there is something that happens at the very end once you defeat Okumura that really opens the big picture as to what is happening in the story. Really excited to see what's going to go down after what happened at the end. Don't want to spoil it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. And don't forget, as always, to stay beautiful. I'm Ajax the Mister, and as always, thanks for watching.
Come on, stop crying and tell us!